All right, guys, today I want to talk about automation. Can you automate the living fuck out of your Shopify store? So this store, already back in the day, we were, as I mentioned, quite vulnerable to paid CPC ads, but at least within paid CPC ads, we were already doing Facebook ads, so very classic Facebook, Instagram, business manager type of campaigns. We were doing TikTok, actually TikTok only in December, so we started a bit late, but we did scale quite well on TikTok as well in December. That's why you can also see that December was our biggest month, where we made almost 300K in revenue. And we were also running Google ads, Google search ads, and some display ads. Nothing crazy, but we also had Google paid ads. I think there was a little bit of Snapchat actually earlier in the year. But the point is, can you automate all of that? And what is not automatable? What is automatable? How much time do you actually need to be spending on this? Should you be spending a lot of time on it? Where can you optimize? Where can you not optimize? So those are the points I want to touch on. There's tools that integrate with all of your paid channels that allow you to create rules, right? Whatever the rules are. And we're going to go through some of the main rules, right? Rules being like, if this happens, do that, right? So if you had to previously manually scale your campaigns or turn them off or duplicate them or do whatever you were doing, you can just create rules that just do it for you when you sleep or when you're on vacation or on holidays or on a weekend, doesn't matter. And hopefully most of you are already familiar with that. And in this case, I think this video is still valuable because we're going to go into some of the rules that I have used and optimized for. And I think there's also a lot to be done there initially in terms of optimizing the rules and having the right rules for the right stores. And there's a lot of things that you need to there's a lot of nuances you need to make sure you get right. Or you're not familiar with those tools, in which case you can just actually see how those tools work. And I'll show you how to set up the main rules. Revealbot, as of now, integrates with Google, Facebook, obviously Snapchat, and TikTok ads. TikTok is actually quite new, and we've actually, I'll also show you the rules for TikTok at some point. The point is, it's all very similar, right? Like the rules are different, but like the point of like pausing and scaling and duplicating campaigns, right, applies to any platform. Like in any platform, you either pause, scale, or duplicate, or a couple of other things, right? So once you get kind of like the gist of how those rules work for one platform, you can do it for any platform. And again, if you find another tool that integrates with like Pinterest or whatever your main platform might be, right, then you can just set the rules up for that platform, right? And we do this for a bunch of stores. Right? I just chose one store, and like we have a bunch of like old rules, and I'll just go through the active rules because I think those are the ones that kind of obviously we're using right now and that we've used also when we were scaling. Like let's say in December and November, I mean all of this, right? So again, just in December, I think we're making close to 300K in revenue, right? Pretty much with those rules. So what are the rules? I think we have 5 rules essentially. I don't know why 4 is twice. Let's see. Oh no, okay, this makes sense. Let's open them up. So the rules are pretty basic, and what they have is they essentially say. Okay, so first of all, if ad sets are active, okay, so this I think this is like almost by default you'll have this. If ad sets are active, obviously you want to only pause active ad sets. So the first rule is to pause ad sets that are not profitable. Okay, so those numbers you obviously need to adjust to your average order value, and generally like obviously it has to be product specific, right? And why I'm mentioning this is actually okay. So this is actually a different store. This is actually the store we have here, where the average order value is $180, right? This is not. So I started to like anyway. You'll get the point. So there's 2 different stores. So you'll actually see like interesting difference in terms of how to create rules based on your average order value, right? Because this is the main thing that will determine when to pause and scale your ads, because obviously you have a break-even point, right? Which you need to determine at which point you want to pause or scale ads. And the average order values are very different, right? So this product we're selling on average for $80, and this product we're selling on average for $180, right? So actually quite a difference, more than the 2x difference. And let's just stick with the store where we are making a higher average order value. What we're saying here is that on a 7-day window, so with Facebook, I like working on a 7-day window. I think that's pretty common. Again, there's a lot of other content out there where people talk all kinds of stuff about Facebook campaigns. But 7 days, it can also be less. So for TikTok, I usually use 3 or 4 days. The point is that you can set whatever works for you, and you can experiment with different rules, and over time just see what works best for your store. There is no one size fits all. But what is working for us is that we say if spend is more than $80 on the last 7 days, right, and the purchase and the ROAS is below 2, then essentially pause the campaign, right? We have this third component, which people get confused by, but what we're saying is that on the last 30-day window, and this is a bit of like an insurance hedge, is that sometimes what you have happening is that you have a campaign that does extremely well on the 30-day window, but on the last week, it dips below the break-even ROAS, in our case, a two ROAS threshold, right? But still on a 30-day window, it's a very profitable campaign, right? If that's the case, this rule would still let the campaign run. It'll only pause it if it's performing poorly in the last 7 days as well as in the last 30 days, right? But in the last 30 days, it needs to be above a 3.5 ROAS, right? So the threshold is much higher. So all in all, a very simple rule, right? So if spend is above X, right, and the ROAS is below 2, which is our break-even ROAS, then we pause the ad set. Now we scheduled the rule to run every 3 hours. You can do every 15 minutes if you want to go completely crazy. No, obviously, it's just the algorithm that does it for you, so do whatever you want to. We do every 3 hours. It's more than enough, unless it's completely up to you. And you also get a notification if you want to. All right. Let's check out the other rules. Okay, I don't need to touch on all of them because I think you'll get the point very fast. Where is ABO? Okay, so you need to distinguish between ABO and CBO on Facebook, and hopefully you know what that means. But on Facebook, you and actually on most other platforms, you can either set the budget on a campaign level or on an ad set level, and the rules, they apply either to ad sets or to campaigns, right? So you can't do both in the same rule. You need to create separate rules for either the ad set or the campaign, right? So if you have an unprofitable CBO, unprofitable campaign, then you need to pause the campaign because the budget is on a campaign level. And if you have an unprofitable ad set, you pause the ad set that's unprofitable, even though the overall campaign, umbrella campaign above that ad set might still be profitable, even though if the ad set itself is unprofitable. So hopefully that makes sense, but I'll just give you an example with the ABO. Here with the ABO and with the CBO, it's actually very similar. If the ad set is active, then and essentially you have more than 3 purchases. So you want some sort of minimum sample size of purchases, right? You don't want to scale if you just have 1 or 2 purchases, right? And even 3 is very little, so it's above 3, so it actually needs to be 4. And again, 4 with an average order value of $180 is actually already, above $600-700 in conversion value, right? So it's not that little to essentially increase the spend, but I'll definitely watch out. I think this is this is the absolute minimum of where you want to essentially spend and scale. Sorry. And again, so if it has a ROAS above 2.7, it made more than 3 purchases and it spent more than $100, right? Then what we do is and you can essentially set any sort of rule here, right? Increase budget by 30%, and you even have like a budget cap, which we don't use, and you do it once in every 3 days, right? And again, you can select, you can do any, I think the point is that you can play around with those rules yourself, right? You can increase budget, decrease budget, you can set up budget, you can set all kinds of bids, you can send all kinds of limits, add names, you can duplicate, you can whatever, you can do whatever you want, whatever the integration allows. So there are some limits, like with TikTok, for example, you weren't able to duplicate ad sets, I believe, a few months ago when I set up the rules. And that's the thing, I set up the rules and I forgot about it because it worked so nice. You need to optimize a little bit over time, and you make some mistakes where ad set gets paused even though you didn't want it to get paused. But all in all, it works very smoothly. And that way you can, automatically all your campaigns that are above a 2.7 ROAS get scaled every 3 days by 30%, right? Which I think is pretty classic. Obviously, with TikTok, everything's a bit more aggressive and volatile. TikTok. With TikTok, I think we can check out the rules. I think I actually had a rule once where I did increase by 100% every 24 hours, which was just completely crazy because it like if you had a profitable, so I think there was above a 3 ROAS or above a 4 ROAS, the threshold was a bit higher, right? But it was completely it was some aggressive scaling on steroids, right? Where essentially if the campaign kept on being profitable, it would just double every day, right? Which obviously is exponential growth. Again, it wouldn't, sometimes, I mean, what happened is you actually had to watch out, and like it would be good to set like a maximum ceiling type of budget, because like if you just let that like spiral out, right, the next thing you know, you might be spending like 40K a day on like one ad set, right? And it's just like completely destroying your marketing budget. So obviously those are the obvious things to look out for, but you can be as aggressive or not as aggressive as you want to. The point is that whatever you do here systemizes and automates your process and leaves the emotions out of you, like being like, should I shut off this ad set or not? Should I like, should I maybe give it another go? Should I leave it on for just one more day because I feel like this is going to be the day where it finally breaks past that break-even ROAS, right? We've all been there. It's very annoying just mentally to have to constantly make this decision, let alone log in every day and actually scale and shut down all those ad sets. You can just set the rules and have a more, overview, systematic approach of like, those are the rules I'm running. I'll test different rules. But once the rule is running, I let the algorithm do its thing, right? And the data I get is going to be absolutely clean, right? Because the algorithm is not biased. It just does what you tell it, right? You're right above a 2.7 ROAS with those rules, it'll scale, right? There's no questions about it, right? So once again, you can select, you can schedule it, so on and so forth. I think the last thing I'll touch on is I actually have a fast scale rule as well, which applies to certain campaigns. So if ROAS is above, I don't even need to show you like the settings, but like if ROAS is above 3, then increase 100% every 2 days. So I even had like a semi-aggressive rule for Facebook, and I use that for some campaigns. And actually, our fast scale campaigns are those where we have we have a CBO with one ad set and 3 creatives. That's just one approach that we had, right? Where we start. So like if we have a CBO with one ad set, so it's like almost like the simplest structure you can have in Facebook, right? CBO with one ad set and with 3 creatives. And then if that goes well, right, we just like start pounding the CBO budget by 100% every 2 days, right? Specifically for those. The rule I talked to before, right, where we increase by 30% every 3 days, is for the ABO. So for example, there it's again also very normal structure. Like you have one campaign with like 5 ad sets, and each ad set might have 3, 4, 5, 6 creatives, right? Again, depending on what you believe. As we can talk until we're blue in the face what the best structure is. I personally think there's no best structure. You can scale. We've managed, and definitely other stores manage to scale with all kinds of structures. If it's a CBO, it's ABO. Like it's all. I think it's all a bit BS to optimize too much on that. Right. Both of them can work. Ultimately, it's again the creative and everything around it, and the targeting and your conversion funnel and the product market fit and many other things. It's much less the difference if it's a CBO or ABO or how many creatives you have in an ad set. The point is test everything. You'll see that you'll get a whole distribution of results, and it'll be difficult to draw very concrete conclusions because everything can work, everything can also not work, and it's pretty wild out there. But those rules will help you at least have structure and be organized as you go through that journey. Anyway, one other last rule I'll mention before wrapping up this video, and actually I'll also after that I'll do another video about automating organic posting, which you can do in a similar fashion. It's quite different, but the idea is the same in terms of automation. But here, one last rule is the late purchase rule of CBO and ABO. Again, just splitting between the two. What happens is, and this is something a lot of people miss, so I do want to mention this because this is not that obvious. If you have an ad set or a campaign that dips below your break-even ROAS, and then you pause the campaign based on one of the previous rules that we discussed, then what might happen, because the attribution window might be longer, it might be again like a 1-day view, 7-day click attribution window, the conversions might only come in several days after the campaign has been paused. So imagine you're running a campaign, it dips below your break-even ROAS today. The rule 3 hours later or immediately, again, depending on how you set the settings, shuts off the campaign or the ad set. But then 3 days later, there's actually a conversion which happens from this campaign, but it only gets attributed to the campaign 3, 4, 5 days later, whatever. making the campaign actually profitable because it's now above break-even ROAS, including now the conversions that happened after it was paused. And what this rule does is that it says, well, if the ROAS is actually above a 1.8 after all on the last 7 days, then restart the ad set and set the budget to $20. For some reason, it sounds very low, but I think I think the idea there was that for some ad sets that had an extremely high budget, you don't want to just relaunch them again because then you're just relaunching a bunch of ad sets at different budget levels, which you're not in control. So what we do is we say, fine, if an ad set was profitable, it got shut down, and then we want to relaunch it, we just always start at the base level of $20 a day. And then all the other rules start kicking in after that, right? So if we relaunch this ad set and then again, let's say it becomes super profitable and it's above a 3 ROAS, then we scale it, so on and so forth. And then all those rules keep on working with each other, right? So anyway, this is how you can automate your store in terms of paid CPC ads. Again, you can do this for Facebook, for Google, for Snapchat, for TikTok. Again, and use other tools for other integrations, right? So there's no excuse to just automate the automatable. And by the way, there's many other things that those tools do. They give you quite interesting reports in terms of creatives and audiences, all kinds of reports, and they have all kinds of strategies, that you can essentially adapt, where they give you very speed dating. Okay, where definitely I think they go a bit above and beyond what you need, but and it's even even beyond e-commerce. So they're definitely expanding. I didn't see this last time. But anyway, the point is automate this so that you can focus on the things that really matter, which is producing the next amazing content and the next incredible creatives for your store. And I have a separate video on that, which is really where you cannot automate fully the content creation, and neither should you, because that's really where the alpha returns can come in, right? With you, channeling that creativity into that next engaging piece of content that will really make a difference for your brand. And that's also where you should be spending your time, or your team. It shouldn't be in just duplicating or again doing any task that's repetitive, right? And again, all of this scaling, pausing, duplicating, it's just a repetitive task. Any repetitive task for Shopify, in my experience, you can automate. And this is what I'm going to be touching on in the other automation videos. Hey, before you bounce, consider subscribing to our channel, but only if you've actually enjoyed the video and found at least a few valuable things for your Shopify store. Also, check out our free Shopify app, Trackidex. We have a link in the description below. We're developing new features literally every day, and we're also excited to actually hear your feedback on some of the next features we should develop. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.